to Heroes Forge, a Heroes of the Storm podcast.
Happy holidays, Forgers, and welcome to Season 3, Episode number 102 of Heroes Forge, a community-driven podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. As always, this podcast is brought to you by our outstanding supporters on patreon.com/HeroesForge. This is your show host, Jeff Reynolds, and I'm here with the co-host of the show, who is more awesome than a long holiday weekend. It's Kristen Ashton.
Howdy. So do you have any plan? I mean, how long is your break? Is it you get 3 weeks of getting to do whatever you want, or is it one of those interspersed with work?
Gosh, I wish. I mean, we all know that Blizzard goes on a holiday break, right? And they're all over the place. All these people that we follow on Twitter that work for Blizzard, I mean, they're all over in Europe, in Mexico. I know some people that went to Australia that work at Blizzard. I'm like, I wish. It must be nice. I mean, I'm here. I gotta work next week. I gotta work the week after. But luckily, I have some of the holidays off, so I'm grateful for that. Anybody out there that has to work the holidays, I know what that's like. Like, on the actual holiday, I've done it a million times, and it's crappy.
It's not as fun as being home and getting sleep. I think that is probably the most upsetting part, right? Because the holidays can have some joy when you work them because it's quiet. You're not dealing with the people you normally deal with. You can get to know your coworkers who are there a bit better. But the sheer fact that you have to get up early really kind of ruins it.
Oh, yeah. And then sometimes you have to work in customer service on a holiday. And back in my days of retail, I remember that I had to work on Christmas Day in some of the situations. So thank you for doing that job. And I always try to say thank you when I'm out there. If I'm out and about, like maybe we go to see a movie or something on Christmas Day, say thank you to those people that are out there serving you on a day that everybody else is celebrating and having a good time. Because I know that it's very tough. Lots of stuff is going on in the Heroes of the Storm world. The first thing is the Firebat. Kristen, what do you think? Are you hyped?
Yes, I love that his name is Blaze, and because of that, I think he's going to have fire stickers stuck on the side of his little plastic Barbie Jeep that's been converted into a pyromancy fest vehicle.
I see where you're going with this, and I didn't even draw that comparison.
It's going to be great. So jokes aside about how hilariously amazing his name is, I'm really excited because it sounds like he's going to be an area tank, which, you know, we see a little bit of zoning with Zarya, and Rexxar Misha control, of course, is definitely, but I mean, like, full all around, hold a point like Sergeant Hammer kind of a tank. That is intriguing.
That is very intriguing. And we talked about the Firebat a long time ago on this show. So it's a long time coming. I mean, this has been on the minds of players of this game for a very long time. So it's really exciting. It's also a little scary to me, kind of like the Kel'Thuzad hype was so high, and now I barely see Kel'Thuzad in the game, right? It's a high skill cap hero, you know, it fits in a very select amount of team comps, so you don't see a lot of Kel'Thuzad out there, so I'm hoping the Firebat meets all of our expectations, blows us all away. It's gonna be crazy. Now, we don't have a kit, Kristen. We don't know what exactly is happening yet.
No, we don't, but we do have confirmation that Jaina is British now.
is a British dreadlord. Jaina
exactly.
Is a British dreadlord, confirmed.
Exactly. This was confirmed.
You heard it right here on Heroes Forge. Jaina is a British dreadlord. Well, if you're waiting to figure out what the Firebat's going to do, and you're wondering what we thought the Firebat might be, check out episode number 35 of this show, and we talked about Firebat at length and what we thought would be really cool. We were thinking more along the lines of Assassin, I believe, but you should totally check it out, because maybe some things will translate, because, you know, the Firebat is an iconic character that has a lot that could translate from what it did in StarCraft over to Heroes of the Storm. Pretty, you know, Overwatch status. You know what I'm saying?
Certainly, and to keep the soul the same, you'd want to transfer that over as one-to-one as possible. And unlike us, where we have to just make up stuff because we don't want to just do one-to-one builds, Blizzard can do the one-to-one build and not worry, because that's generally what people are hoping to see.
Totally. Check it out. Episode number 35. It was a blast. I remember it vividly. So check it out and have a listen and find out what our thoughts were before we figure out what the actual deal is going to be. I have a feeling it's going to be a while until we find out a kit. I think they kind of put this teaser out, and I think it'll be probably after the holidays that we get a hero reveal video.
Yeah, I hope so, right? I hope that it's planned out so that all they have to do is final editing, so that at the start of January, once everyone's back, they release the kit and then they go straight into the hero on the PTR.
Yeah, I would love that stuff. That'd be really, really fun. Speaking of holidays, lots of stuff is going on for your HeroesForge podcast. We've got a couple of schedule changes coming up. Today's schedule change, it's Friday. We usually record on Sunday nights at 7. So today we're recording at 3 because we want to continue to bring you an episode once a week because you guys are awesome and we love talking about this game. So we're doing that next week as well because New Year's Eve falls on a Sunday. We'll be out celebrating New Year's Eve. So we're doing it on Friday again. So 1 week from today, the 29th of December at 3 p.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/Amove TV, you can check out the recording of this show once again.
It'll be a ton of fun. I don't know who we're forging then, but I do know who we're forging today.
And who is that?
It is Millhouse Manastorm.
That's right, Millhouse Manastorm, the crazy Millhouse Manastorm. So let's get to it and let's forge.
Let's forge.
All right, Kristen, I'm going to tell you how I came up with the idea to forge Millhouse Manastorm. I was playing Legion about 5 nights ago. I was playing with my buddies and we're waiting around and we're in a LFR group for new Antorus wing that had just opened up. And we're sitting there waiting and waiting because, you know, raiding with people is always a waiting game. It's like a whole lot of hurry up and wait, die, hurry up and wait, die kind of thing. And I didn't know this. Maybe I'm a pleb. I'm a total pleb. Let's just admit it. But I didn't know that there is a toy that you can purchase in the game, or you get somehow, that will turn you into Millhouse Manastorm in the game.
Really? I knew there was one that would turn you into a sexy mermaid, but I had no idea things got sexier.
Yeah. Yes, they did. They got a lot sexier, and I proceeded to tank the entire rest of the wing of the LFR as Millhouse Manastorm, and it was pretty incredible.
I think Millhouse would have been very proud of this, and I wonder if you get points with him. If he has this behind-the-scenes system where Blizzard's Millhouse awards you points so that he likes your hero better than others the longer you spend dressed as him.
Yeah, and that's the actual reputation that you're grinding out right now, but don't even know it until Battle for Millhouse opens up, which is the expansion after Battle for Azeroth, and you launch that game and you go, oh crap, I should have been playing as Millhouse my entire WoW career.
Right? It's to award those dedicated players that know where the importance of the game actually is.
And the sexiest character in the game, Millhouse Manastorm. Well, if you're out there scratching your head and wondering who the hell is Millhouse Manastorm, Kristen, give us a little breakdown on this guy and his place in Warcraft.
Will do. Millhouse Manastorm is a small gnome with big aspirations. Originally found trapped in Arcatraz, he was mistakenly released by Warden Melikar and agreed to join up with the adventurers, or adventurer, to finish the fight after being insulted by the Blood Elf. Following this, the wily gnome laid low for a while, showing himself again during an overheard conversation with a member of the Twilight's Hammer. In short, he had joined a cult. Now, whether he knew what he was doing or not, adventurers were tasked with taking him down. In combat, he summoned up a new spell, Impending Doom. Before this most powerful magics could be cast, though, Corborus, a massive gyre worm, killed him. Or so we thought. In Pandaria, he was a member of the Brawlers Guild, and in Draenor, he assured everyone he'd changed, asked for assistance acquiring a piece of equipment for a humanitarian project, and then joined the players' garrisons. In the most recent expansion, Legion, Manastorm was captured by the Burning Legion while looking for the Nightborne Soulstone. Locked away, he was eventually freed by Kalikos and the Archmage of Tirisgard. When denied his prize after helping secure victory for those that freed him, he stumbled away in tears, crying, "You are not my friends anymore." As of today, he is found mainly in Hearthstone as a 2-cost, 4 health, 4 defense card with a battle cry that makes all enemy spells free to cast during the next turn.
There he is, ladies and gentlemen, Millhouse Manastorm. And what can we say other than that? I mean, do you have a memory of Millhouse Manastorm? Because I only remember him from the BC raid, the first section of this intro, and I remember that whole thing going down and where he says he's going to help the adventurers on the final boss, or it's like the second to last boss that comes out and he kind of stands there and, you know, gets ready to fight but never actually fights.
Exactly. He talks about how awesome it's going to be when he gets there, but he's got to get there first. I just remember him from Arcatraz and then that little bit in Cataclysm down with Corborus. After that, I didn't play enough to really run into him again.
This really shines to me, though, in a specific way where I start thinking, this character really came from nothing. I mean, it came into existence, from nothing. It just came in a dungeon one day. This just happened. Like, Millhouse was a thing, and he's been a thing for years after that. It's incredible how that exists to me. I mean, now you can get a toy that turns you into Millhouse. Millhouse is a card in Hearthstone. Like, it just is exploded.
Totally. The legend behind him, I think Blizzard has handled very well because they haven't made the mistake of turning the side character into a main character. There's a reason these side characters are so lusted after, and that's because they're so rarely shown. But each time they're shown, they do something amazing, and then they're gone. So by doing these little side bits with him each expansion, you still don't get enough, but a little itch is scratched.
That's a really, really good way of putting it. Now, Kristen, the big question here is that, do you think the Nexus needs more gnomes?
I do, because there aren't enough small characters for representation in Heroes. We've got Murky, we've got Chromie, Brightwing flies, so maybe she counts, maybe she doesn't.
Sergeant Hammer is like little in a tank.
That's true. Her body size is very small. Li Ming is skinny.
So you would like Millhouse. You would like more gnome representation.
I could stand for a few tinier. And I mean, look at that facial hair. His hair alone makes his silhouette so worth putting into the Nexus.
He's got a serious mustache. I can't say that word. Mustache. He must have done No Shave November and never stopped. No shave ever.
Right, and maybe his wife hated it, and it seems like the two of them don't get along, so if she hated it, he, of course, is going to keep growing it out.
Love it. He would do what he wants, because and this is another thing we should touch on in the lore. He really believes that he is an all-powerful wizard.
Based probably upon, I'm not going to say all short people are on ego trips, but I can imply it based on my own life and my own personal beliefs in myself. I am a short person on an ego trip, so I absolutely buy that an even shorter person would be on an even bigger ego trip.
And what an awesome personality to bring into Heroes of the Storm. Another, very, very strong personality, which a lot of characters, I mean, think about all of the heroes that are in the game right now. Their personalities are, for the most part, very strong. I mean, those are the characters that resonate with us as we play these Blizzard games, and that's why they make it into Heroes of the Storm, because of these personalities as well. So Millhouse would fit in just fine right there. So let's get to it. Let's start forging here. And I'm going to start this week, and we're going to start with what we always start with: role classification. So we're going to build these kits from the bottom up. Kristen will build one, and I will build one as well, and we'll just chat through it. And I'm going with the role classification of assassin because you have to.
Yeah, I don't think there's any other class he could fit, because assassins are the carries of the game. And if Millhouse is not the carry of his team, what's even the point of having him in the game, much less the Nexus?
Absolutely. So this assassin, Millhouse, is going to have a trait called Conjure Water. So Millhouse can activate this ability to conjure water and regain mana on the battlefield. When activated, he must remain still and would be a target for the enemy, but a large percentage of his mana would be regenerated by this process without having to return to the Hall of Storms or by visiting a healing fountain. Now, percentage-wise, I'm thinking like a lot. More than a Malfurion Innervate, because it's just on yourself. You can't put it on someone else. And I think it would fill up a little faster than that. And this kind of derives from that lore portion of it, where he, instead of fighting, he decided to get ready for the fight and drink some water.
You know, he's the 30 minutes late kind of thing. The friend that always says they'll get there on time, but when they say they'll be there at 4, they mean they'll be there at like 4:30, 5:30. They'll be there. They'll be there, but you know, they don't start getting ready until then. So I love this idea. So a lot of mana, quickly regen, and he's targetable. So how short is the cooldown, do you think this would be? Could he kind of spam it?
No, I think it's more like it lives in the innervate range. That's where really this is what is inspired. So somewhere around the same cooldown as a innervate. So not super long, not super short. It kind of lives in the middle area there, and he's just able to give it to himself. So yeah, it would be like a mage that constantly had a Malfurion with him, you know what I mean? Like when we play in Team League, you know, Kael'thas is trying to get that what's the word I'm looking for? Trying to get his quest completed. Yeah.
Convection. I'm conjecture, convection. You know, English.
It's holidays, people. Brains are turned off. So convection quest complete. So Malfurion rolls with him and gives him as much mana as possible so he can get as many abilities off to get that done. So, but Millhouse can do that for himself with this trait, Conjure Water. Now, the next thing we talk about is what mount they would ride if they came into the Nexus. And I'm thinking that he's going to ride, because of his time in the Brawlers Guild, you know, maybe he got some of those, you know, Brawler mounts in there. So I really want a Basilisk. This doesn't really fit Millhouse at all. I think I'm just going off of my personal opinion here, and I want a Basilisk in the game, and I'm like, Millhouse, yeah, you're going to be the one that brings it to us.
It's fair, right? And a Basilisk could turn things to stone. You could do a lot with this guy. I remember the Basilisks having way too much health. Of all of the critters as a rogue that I had to fight, these things had billions of health points. So though I wouldn't mind seeing one in the Nexus, I don't know if I can share the excitement, Jeff.
I don't know why. Just like, this would be a great critter to be a mount. So thank you, Millhouse, for bringing that to our imaginations. Chat has got a great conversation going on right now that I want to bring up, and Millhouse has this crazy ability. He is involved in every school of mage magic, right? He's got arcane, he's got fire, he's got frost, he's got it all. So when we're building these kits, you can really go any direction with any school of that kind of magic.
You can, and maybe I didn't do this, but maybe a trait could be you switch between the schools, and that shifts your abilities drastically.
That'd be really, really cool. Or maybe, yeah, I didn't do this, but maybe each one of your abilities could be from a different school of magic. Maybe you got your arcane on Q, your fire on W, and your ice on E. That'd be a cool way of doing that. We didn't do that, but let's get on to more cool ideas. So my first basic ability is called Doom. Millhouse will place a power crystal on the battlefield that pulses damage to all enemies in the area. Now, each time that it does damage to an enemy, it will gain a stack of power overwhelming, and that increases the amount of damage that it does with each pulse. That's not the important part, though. The important part is that when the power crystal reaches 10 stacks, it will explode, dealing massive damage to all enemies that are in range. The crystal can be destroyed, however, before it reaches 10 stacks, and the explosion would not happen if it is destroyed.
Oh, sick. So, Probius's pylons, but damage dealing. Do they have little angry faces?
Absolutely. Nothing but angry faces. And they're just like 8-bit angry faces.
Good. Now, how big is this area that these angry little crystals are pulsing in?
I think that's a good comparison to give it like maybe a little bit bigger than a Probius orb, whatever that ability is called, where he shoots the orb out and then he has to hit it to explode it. Maybe it's a little bigger than that circle, and the power crystal's in the middle of it, and it's just continuously pulsing for a set amount of time. It pulses. Every time it deals damage to an enemy, it gets a stack. When it hits 10, I mean, maybe the animation with this is that each stack that it gains, it's like becoming more and more overwhelmed with the power inside of it. And maybe the enemy team doesn't know how many stacks it has, or maybe they can see the number. I'm not sure what would be cooler.
Oh, that I like the idea of them not being able to see, but at the same time, I understand the importance of knowing where your enemy is at so you can react to it. So you drop it in lane, it hits the lane minions, yes, because they're enemies?
Yeah, but that doesn't count for stacks. I think it has to be hero hits, because we're going for full-on assassin here.
Okay, totally. I get what you're saying. Because I was thinking, oh, what if it hits all of the lane minions? Is that 7 stacks all of a sudden and it just needs 3 more and it can explode?
Hey, maybe there's a talent, though, where each lane minion that it hits counts as a quarter of a stack.
That would work. That would absolutely work, because we see that compromise too when you do those killer based talents that certain assassins have, where minions still grant you something, so you can still make progress even though the heroes are the ones that you're most rewarded for hitting.
Yeah, so that's what I'm going with here. So basically, drop this in the middle of a team fight. If you hit all 5, that's halfway to your explosion. If they don't take it out like a murky pufferfish, then it's going to do some serious damage.
And then what's the range on how far you can drop this out? I mean, how into the fight would you have to be?
I think you got to be right on top of it. I think you got to really be, because we've got some escape options here that we're going to get to that might help out a little bit. So let's move on then. Let's get to the second basic. This one's called Arcane Intellect. Sound familiar? So when Arcane Intellect is activated, Millhouse will be able to study a target and learn their weaknesses. He points and clicks, so this is not a skill shot, points and clicks on a target, and they are marked with Arcane Intellect and will take increased damage from all of Millhouse's abilities and basic attacks. So something we see in the game already. Now the difference here is that if the target is inside the power crystal, they will count as 2 stacks each time they are hit with a power overwhelming explosion.
Interesting. So it sounds like your kit now is built around getting these crystals to really do a lot of the work.
Yeah, and it's something from when you actually have an opportunity to fight Millhouse. I mean, there's these power overwhelming and these crystals and all of this stuff is happening, and it does things similar to that. So I was trying to bring that to life in Heroes.
I like that idea. And how far away is this cast range? Would Millhouse have be able to do this from further away, so kind of set up the crystal back away and then punch the W?
Yeah, so this has a better range to it. And you're basically just watching to see. I mean, maybe there's somebody that gets Zool rooted inside of it, and you know they're going to be there for a second. Bam, pop this arcane intellect on them, offload on them with basic attacks. But when you're doing that, they're also making this crystal ready to explode.
So good, because the positioning, you would really get to play around with getting people to walk through your little trap area. And if there's one thing I learned this weekend with Jaina, just if you're being attacked, drop the ice on yourself, and suddenly you've got this 3-stack, and there's a good chance you'll walk away alive.
Yeah, or take somebody out with you.
Exactly. And that's always worth it. Oh, especially if you're learning assassin. Tangential note with assassins, something I always try to practice when I'm first getting good is going 1 for 1. Once I can do that, then I know I can up the ante and go 1 for 2 kind of a thing.
Oh yeah, great point. Love it. Now, speaking of getting in and out of places, this third basic ability is called Get Off. So Millhouse, this is one of his abilities from the game as well, kind of just tweaked in here. So Millhouse will magically push all heroes that are in range of this AoE circle around him away from him. So think about like an ETC, power slide, push out, everybody goes out like that. The difference, though, is that they're pushed in the direction of his power crystal. So if there's no power crystal active, Millhouse cannot use this ability. So he's running, maybe you got a power crystal behind you, you activate this ability, it pushes them in the direction of the crystal, and maybe you can even talent it into it where it would push them all the way to the crystal if it was a certain range away. There'd be something to get them back into that section.
Oh man, I debated so hard putting this ability into my kit. It didn't make it eventually, but I love that you grabbed it. This is such a cool one, right? Because it's kind of like Brightwing's Emerald Wind, just the get away from me. Let's go home and restart. But this makes me wonder, so with the crystal, how fast do you lay that thing down? Could you drop it in 0.1 seconds as you run and then pop this thing?
Yeah, I think you could drop it pretty fast. Maybe not 0.1 seconds, but pretty quick, and then be able to use it. I mean, imagine if you could talent into it so that your crystal only needed, 7 hits to get a arcane explosion, like this massive explosion. So you got the whole team chasing you, you drop this thing down, you activate this escape ability, you push them back into the crystal, they've got hit twice, bam, that thing explodes, massive damage. I mean, GG.
It is, yeah, and how long would they be pushed toward the crystal, and how close would you need to be to the crystal to be able to activate this? Because I would imagine it wouldn't be global, even though I entirely support this being global.
It's not global. I think you're right on that. I think you would need to be. So I'm imagining that the pushback is maybe a little bit further than an ETC pushback, right? Just a little bit further than that. You would need to be in range for them to go back into the range of the crystal in order to use this. That's how close you would need to be. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I like that too, because it's not a disappear. It's more of a you're using this probably because you're going to kill at least 1 or 2 enemy heroes, whether or not you make it out alive. Yeah. Or you're going to damage the enemies up enough that your team can then sweep in and take out the trash.
Totally. Speaking of that, we got to get into the heroics here. So my first heroic is actually Hearthstone inspired here in my dungeon runs, which are a total blast, Kristen. If you're not playing the dungeon runs, you're missing out. I love them.
I can't stop playing the dungeon runs. I've gotten to 8. I still haven't entirely beaten a dungeon yet, but I'm well on my way. I've almost beaten 100 bosses with my warrior.
Oh, really? That's great. Yeah, I've gotten really lucky, and I've beaten 3 of them already, and it just gets dumb sometimes and frustrating, but man, is it fun. So this ability is inspired from that, and Millhouse is in Hearthstone, so here we go. It's called I'm Gonna Light You Up, Sweet Cheeks. So when this is activated, Millhouse will unleash all of his mighty power on the Nexus. He will stand still and begin to cast fireballs at all targets in range, friend or foe. Millhouse will continue to cast these fireballs until he is either defeated or a hero is killed. Fireballs will fire every 2 seconds until somebody goes down.
Gross, but a wonderful, wonderful way to bring this into the Nexus, because I've seen cards like that where they just keep firing or going until something dies, and oh man, this would be a frustratingly awesome ult to have.
Yeah, I think it's called, there's a card in the dungeon run called the Rod of Roasting, I think is what it's called, and it literally does that. It costs 10 mana, you play it, and it will fire 10 damage. Each fireball does 10 damage, and it just plays until one of the heroes dies, and it's random. You hit yourself, you hit your minions, you hit everything, and then when somebody dies, somebody won. So this would be too fun for somebody crazy like Millhouse Manastorm to have something like that in the Nexus. Now, if a hero is killed and it's not from one of these fireballs, it doesn't deactivate the ability. Somebody has to die from a fireball hit for it to count.
Well, now you're talking pro timing and pro strats right there, right? Because the best teams would use the fireballs to weaken their enemies, kill that enemy, and keep the fireballs rolling.
Cloud9. That'd be some Cloud9 stuff right there.
Murky. Yeah, you get Murky on your team with Manastorm, and it's a GG easy win. That's all I have to say.
That's right. Pufferfish and exploding crystals. Gotta love it. Now, my second heroic is just as wacky as the first one, and it's called Manastorm's Duplicator. Now, an item that can be used, that we talked about in World of Warcraft, to transform your toon into Millhouse for a short amount of time. This item makes its way to Heroes of the Storm with this heroic ability. When activated, all players in range of this AoE spell that Millhouse is going to cast will transform their look into a duplicate Millhouse Manastorm. They keep all of their same abilities and attributes. They just look like Millhouse. Also, their icon on the minimap is replaced with a Millhouse icon. So you just don't know who you're fighting.
This is supposed to be rated E for everyone, Jeff. I'm sorry, listeners.
Is that not?
That it went too far with this sexy skin for everybody.
Oh.
But, you know, sometimes you got to go all the way. But all right, so how long is everybody Millhouse?
A long time. Like, I want it to feel like, oh my gosh, we don't know who to engage. We don't know who to, what? Like, is that Brightwing or is that Diablo? Like, we don't know. Now, you can see the hero activating abilities and doing things, so you can see that, that Millhouse just isn't mounting up for some reason. But you would have to determine that was Brightwing. Imagine going into a team fight and not knowing who to target, and the entire time you were just targeting Varian.
Right? And then there's a Millhouse bottom, too. Is it Zagara? It looks like Millhouse. So they get the same color schemes as well. This is absolute replica madness made manifest.
Yes, the duplicator, the Manastorm duplicator. As funny as this is, I actually think that this would be a super cool idea and a super useful tool in higher leagues where people are calling shots, doing crazy stuff. This would just be a way to totally turn the game in a weird direction.
Oh, absolutely. And two, the best part is no one on the team would have a say except for Millhouse as to when it happens. So that could lead to some very interesting plays if your team is willing to go along with it. Not that they have a choice, right? They're Millhouse by this time.
Now, I feel like your team would see the actual heroes. Like, you would be able to see what is actually going on behind the curtain, so to speak, where the enemy team is just seeing Millhouses.
Totally. And that's fair, right? Your team with the Millhouse needs to be able to differentiate because you want to sow the seeds of chaos on the other team's garden. You don't want your own garden messed up.
Nope.
You're growing trees great.
Wow, on point with the analogies today. I love it. Your growing trees great, and that's basically how you sum up this whole kit. You are growing trees great, and this is the craziness of Millhouse that I wanted to bring in here. You know, you've got your crystals that are exploding. You're able to, you know, really manipulate the battlefield to try to get those crystals to go off and deal some massive damage. And then, of course, the crazy heroics with the fireballs casting like nuts. And then also the duplicator to have a bazillion Manastorms on the battlefield.
Yeah, this is a wonderful kit. And I love how you all based it around that crystal. That's a really, really neat idea, because instead of like with Probius where you set up crystals to activate other things, your crystals really are your source of power, which kind of does play into the lore, right? Because he's always searching for something to make him more powerful.
Yeah, he's power hungry. I know there aren't many characters in Warcraft that are power hungry.
No, not at all. I mean, he's a rare breed when it comes to gnomes and a lust for power.
Think about it. All of the player characters in the game are also power hungry. Like, I need to get to eye level 980. I need to get there right now. I mean, everybody's power hungry in that game. Gotta love it.
Yeah, it's just being a hero, right? Part and parcel for the whole hero gig.
That's right. And who knows, maybe it'll just end up with Gul'dan turning you into a million shards on the broken shore and everyone just being devastated. Well, before we get to Kristen's kit, or too far off topic, we have some people that we need to thank, and we need to thank them over and over and over again. And those first and foremost are all of our supporters on patreon.com/HeroesForge. A huge hats off to you. Thank you so much for supporting this show episode after episode. If you too are out there thinking, you know, I'm in the holiday spirit, I'd like to support one of my favorite shows, and we happen to be one of them, head on over to patreon.com/HeroesForge and check out the different ways that you can help support us. It helps the show grow, and it's awesome. Also, thank you to all of our listeners that listen to us on all of our podcasting apps, especially iTunes, the people that give us a 5-star review. That also helps the show grow when people search for Heroes of the Storm podcasts, which there are so many awesome ones out there. Thank you to everyone that has done that as well. Also, a thank you to everyone that hangs out in the chat every single week. Some great ideas always flow from the chat, and you guys are rock stars as always. All right, Kristen, let's get to it. Are you going with an assassin as well?
You have to. It's an unwritten rule that I think if it's broken, the game would fall apart.
And now Millhouse is a support.
The code starts going crazy. Blue screens of death sweep the nation, and for once the posts on Reddit are happy. No one could have predicted it, but maybe it's because we all got away from our computers for a bit.
That's incredible. That really is incredible. So, what trait are you going with for your assassin?
All right, the trait I kind of borrowed from Chromie, and it's called a little power. Now, because Manastorm is so powerful, his talents are delayed one turn. Or one level, one turn. What am I talking about in Heroes?
Hearthstone.
That's the basic attack. That's a turn. Thank you. Hearthstone. How could I have mixed the two? There we go. All right, so it's delayed one level. To recognize his painfully slow wind-up, though, his cooldowns and cast times are very long at the start of the game, but these decrease in length as the game goes on.
Now, I love this because when I was doing research on gnomes, because we've talked about this before, I'm not a gnome guy. I'm not a gnome or a dwarf guy like in games or D&D or anything. I never roll gnomes or dwarves and you know, you had a great point one episode we were talking about how, you know, you got to relate to the character that you're playing and stuff, and I just don't. So I was doing research on gnomes and finding out that in Warcraft they are very powerful, like very smart. They're smart, one of the smartest races out there, and they have a whole bunch of different, you know, traits in Warcraft that actually translate that to the player, like having increased mana regen and things like that, and they're connected to the magical elements and all of these sorts of things. So this is such a cool idea to bring something like that, and stealing from Chromie is totally fine. I mean, this is different. It's flopped on its head.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Chromie loves to share anyway, so she'd probably be okay with this. Oh, she saw it coming. She saw this, right time and everything. But yeah, I like the idea of playing with this whole thing that he's so powerful. You know, you got to tone him down. We got to nerf him before we even nerf him.
Yeah, and then if you unleash the beast, it's over.
GG easy is what he automatically types in chat at the end of every game because he wins. He's the only hero with the 100% win rate.
That's right. Millhouse Manastorm. Gotta love it. I mean, do you think that Chromie and Millhouse would be friends?
I guess it depends on how evil, how far from neutral Millhouse has strayed in terms of going into the more evil side. Because there's a theory out that his mind has been warped because of all of the time he spent in Arcatraz. And that's why he joins the cult. So he may be infected by the old gods, or maybe he's just bonkers. He's one of those savants. He's so smart. He seems weird to everybody else, but that's because they can't even possibly comprehend what he knows.
Millhouse Manastorm confirmed Dreadlord.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He comes in with a Dreadlord skin, and he's the most powerful Dreadlord, too.
The most powerful. What mount is this most powerful Millhouse Manastorm going to ride into battle?
A super rare mount. It could be Death Charger or Sea Turtle, but he refuses to ride into battle on anything less than befitting such a powerful and mighty gnome.
So he activates his mount. He's like a Dahaka, right? You don't get to choose what mount you're going to ride into the battle. It's just a random super rare mount.
Exactly. So maybe there are 5 choices it cycles between. Just so not every rare mount from Warcraft has to be brought to the Nexus.
Why not? Why not? Let's bring them all in. You know, there was this mount that you could get if you only played the World of Warcraft physical trading card game. It was a loot card that would drop from one of the boss encounters that you would have, and you'd scratch it off and it would have a code. It's like some sort of pyro drake or something. That's one of them that Millhouse would ride.
It is. It totally is. And then he'd have cards of the mount that he'd rip up and throw at people as he casts his spell, just so no one can be as cool as he is.
Or codes he's already used. He's throwing used cards that already have their codes used. Here's a mount for you. Have fun.
Not only is he super powerful, but he's a super jerk. Alarak is impressed with what Millhouse pulls.
Absolutely. Let's get into some basic abilities here. What's your first one?
The first one is called Blur, and this is a simple self-cleanse that makes Manastorm unstoppable and increases his movement speed.
This is something that I wanted to put in my kit so bad because it's right in there. I mean, Blur is great. It feels like a mage in World of Warcraft. Like it feels like that blink, kind of thing. I think it's great.
Yeah, and I really want him to have a way to get around the battlefield because he's small. And if I recall this correctly in D&D, you have a better sneak chance when you're half normal size, if you're a halfling, for instance. Because you're so small, it's so easy to overlook you. So why wouldn't you have something in your kit that allows you to run around and bite people's ankles without them even realizing that's what you're doing?
I love it. Super cool. Second basic ability. Let's hear it.
All right, second one is Shadow Bolt. I've gone with the dark side of the arcane arts because this is the Millhouse that I fell in love with. So Manastorm's main mode of damage, he shoots out a bolt of shadow energy that deals immediate damage as well as damage over time. If the target has already been hit by one of these bolts, the damage is increased when they are hit by another, stacking up to 3 times.
Oh, I love it. This is a great idea. So you hit them once. They take the overall damage and they're taking a little bit of ticking damage. You hit them again. The overall damage is more. The damage over time is more, or both of them are more? How does that work?
It would have to be both. We could say one or the other, but this is Manastorm we're talking about.
I love it. I love it. So cool. Now, imagine this. With this ability, what if you could talent into it like at 20, where instead of doing the damage over time, it just adds that to the burst at the beginning.
Ooh, so just completely drop the dot and turn this into an assassin bolt?
Just like a full-on bolt, and if you hit him 3 times, you probably wouldn't even need to, right?
Exactly. Maybe twice. Maybe.
If it's a tank. I love this. This is cool. And the dark arts of Millhouse Manastorm. It's so cool. What's your next basic ability?
All right, the next one is Shadow Fury. And this is a curse that infects a target enemy hero with a debuff that only Manastorm can see. When activated again, shadow damage explodes from the target hero, hurting all enemies in range and knocking them out with a very brief stun.
Oh, this is great. So you did have a sort of knockback like I had with one of my abilities. You baked it into this one.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted a single target damage as well as a burst type of damage, because I feel with mages that's a really important balance to have, because even though you're mostly burst, it is so imperative to be able to kill a single target in order to be better utilized in more types of team comps. And so with this, you have it.
So definitely. I think what is most interesting about this ability to me is that the curse infects a target enemy hero with a debuff that only Manastorm can see.
Yep, he's the only one powerful enough to pick up on the traces of this oh so epic curse.
Now, when you play against someone like Zuljin, when we're talking about all these trolls last week, I don't know what words to say. When you're playing against Zuljin in the game and he debuffs you, you've got an icon over you that shows you that you're debuffed. When you play against the Butcher, you got an icon over you that shows you that you're branded, so on and so forth. So this is the first time that I can think of where you're debuffed and you don't know it.
Yeah, and that would be a very interesting thing to try out. I don't know if it would actually last. I hope for Manastorm's sake it would, because it would make him feel incredible. But maybe it would be one of those where you go in assuming you're going to be cursed, so be careful. Kind of like when you're playing against a stealthy, go in assuming the stealthy is going to show up behind you and try to pop off a few. And if you play like that, it's not really a big deal. No, it's when you forget to play like that.
I love it. I think it's so cool. I think it's cool to not know. As you know, from most of our kits that we talk about on the show, the not knowing is part of it that they haven't really played around with a whole heck of a lot. So this would be a really, really neat idea. Speaking of neat ideas, let's hear the heroics. What's your first heroic?
All right, the first one, Impending Doom. The classic one that he takes forever to cast and we never actually see it. Delivers a strike so diabolical it is unable to be described accurately in text. Affected targets will similarly be unlikely to have understood the full effect of this spell, as its blinding brilliance washes over them like a tidal wave of devastation. It's a 10-minute cast time.
So, now I have some questions about this, which I don't think you'll be able to answer. Is this a 10-minute win the game cast time?
This is definitely a 10-minute. You cast this, you wipe the enemy team.
I love it. And when I was doing research, I saw this impending doom, and I thought that's really funny. Now, hear me out on this, though. I think that there might be a place in Heroes for something like this. Now, would it feel good? Who knows? You'd have to play with it, and you'd have to see if it did. But something where a hero would say, all right, everybody, this is going in our favor or it's not going in our favor. What we're going to do is we're basically going to sacrifice having an enemy or having a friendly player on the team to put the enemy team on a timer. Right? So you put the enemy team on a timer and say you only have 10 minutes to finish the game. And if you don't, then we win.
I like that idea. Now, would it be too powerful to win the game at level 10? Maybe there's some sort of scaling in there. But yeah, and I think when you have a team that understands a Murky, for instance, that's kind of how it goes. The enemy team either keeps that Murky on lockdown the entire game, or they don't and they lose. They have a set time before the Murky team gets so much XP that you can fight 4v5 and wipe them time and time and time again. So something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I see what you're saying. You maybe wouldn't want to make it as black and white as you will lose after 10 minutes. But of course, in this fictional Millhouse kit that we're talking about here, let's do it.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, exactly. I like that, right? 10 minutes. Core is dead. Nice job, enemy team.
Now, what could you possibly follow up that heroic with?
All right, this one I personally enjoy very much. I went with Power Overwhelming, which you kind of incorporated into yours. Manastorm is no stranger to infusing himself with arcane powers to grow. Stronger, of course. With Power Overwhelming, he loads himself up with power. This increases the damage he inflicts to enemies, and the longer he performs this, the higher the bonus damage. So the idea being that this is something late game you would use, because by the end of the game, you're spamming everything. There are no cooldowns, and you're doing absurd amounts of damage.
And this is on top of your trait.
Yes.
So your trait is already giving you a crazy amount of damage at the end of the game, and then you pick this heroic and you're doubling up.
Exactly. So depending on how hands-on you want to be with killing your foes, this one could be a great one if you like being in the thick of the fight.
Yeah. Or you could just take Impending Doom.
Or you could, right? I mean, Impending Doom could be the auto pick. I'm not going to argue, but Manastorm should have a choice in the matter.
I really like this idea. I love the idea of a ramped hero that just gets scarier and scarier and scarier. And maybe you have an advantage at the beginning of the game. And maybe you go into this battle thinking, guys, Millhouse is on the enemy team. So what we've got to do is take as much advantage of that situation at the beginning of the game so that we can get into a favorable position before he starts destroying us.
That's 100% what it would be. He would very much be a mid to late game hero. And if the enemy team can recognize that and, like you said, come up with a plan to counter it, they should be fine. No problem. But it's when you're equal levels or take a level lead, Millhouse would just wipe the floor with these guys.
Yeah, that's great, though. I love it. Okay, Kristen, sum it all up for us. How do you sum it all up?
All right, I'm summing it up with Gnome Man's brand. Because he brands you a shadow.
I got it. It's great. It just keeps getting better episode after episode. But before we can call these heroes forged, we got to talk about specialty skins and dance moves. Kristen, what specialty skin are you giving Millhouse when you bring him into the Nexus?
Oh, this one I had fun with. I'm calling it Millhouse Manastorm. Seeking to be greater than mere pests, insects have banded together using the arcane arts to produce Millhouse Manastorm, the naturally talented.
So it's a bunch of insects that are connected that create a body.
Exactly.
Wow. So the different skin the different skin tints of this are different types of insects?
Yeah, you could do that. That would be the easiest one, right? Because we all know insects have very different carapaces. Some are red, some are black, some have some blue, some green. So yeah, you could get away with a lot of different colors.
I love it. That's great. My skin idea is a little more normal, I want to say.
You can say that.
I'm going with Dobby the house elf from Harry Potter. I mean, because they're really powerful with magic, right?
Yes. I mean, Dobby is hinted to be one of the more powerful creatures in the universe once he's set free.
So is Millhouse.
I love the connection there. Would he wear a potato sack, or would this be Dobby on a power trip?
No, this would be total potato sack Dobby. I love it.
Oh, so he wouldn't socks everywhere. He's got this big old chain made of socks.
Yeah.
He's got a ring made of laundry. This is high level house elf here.
That's right. And and I wasn't sure if this was like if this was mean, but I think Millhouse would make a great garden gnome.
Oh, he would, and the hat would fit perfectly, because I'm looking at this picture we have on the video, and he looks like Santa from far away. So you just give him the little David the Gnome hat, and it works.
And he would have to have a Santa skin, speaking of holiday episode.
Yes, it's true. He would. His facial hair is too perfect. He'd be tiny Santa.
And then my dance move over here, I'm saying that he would do the freeze dance. Now, the freeze dance would be considered, he would just stand frozen in place and blink. That's it.
I like it. It's one of those Art Nouveau, right? One of those modernist dance pieces where we're deconstructing what it actually means to dance.
Yeah, and maybe he has like 10 different frozen poses. And Blizzard, you can thank us now for all the bug reports that would come into the game. Every time I type /dance from Millhouse, all he does is stand still.
Oh, goodness, you're right. Never be like, oh, well, he's just dancing, loser. Learn your character, bro.
And I'm sure that the animation team would love that because they wouldn't have to animate a dance. They'd just be like, dance, check.
We got it. Just hold this, make him blink. Good. Good job, everyone. High five, champagne, mimosas for everyone.
What's your dance move, Kristen?
The dance move, I'm going to stick with the one from WoW. You can't touch this, right? With those parts incorporated. And the gnomes, they love their little hip thrusts and they love their spanks almost as much as they love their own genius.
Spanks. You need...
Well, yeah, they do the hand up and then the one going side to side doing little spanks.
You're talking about spanks like actual spanking.
Slapping somebody. Were you thinking of the underwear?
Oh, wow. Yes.
Do they even make Spanx that small?
I mean, they love Spanx. You gotta love gnome Spanx. In every form of the Spanx. We better call this before we go any deeper into Spanx. This hero was forged.
HeroesForge.
Wow, I thought we laughed hard in the Splood episode. That was really funny.
Oh, that was great. Gnome Spanx.
Gnome Spanx. Hashtag Gnome Spanx. Make it real. Make it real, Blizzard. All right, Kristen. Final thoughts on Millhouse. My final thoughts are it's definitely a character that I think we'll see in the game. It's one of the fan favorites. It's in Hearthstone already. I think we're gonna get Millhouse. I mean, we've talked about other gnomes on the show, and I think Millhouse is probably at the top of their list as far as characters go that are gnomes, I should say. Not on the top of the list out of all the characters. I'm sure there are some other ones. But I think Millhouse is somebody we'll see in the game.
Yeah, because not only does he give us another gnome, but he gives us another mage character. And so we get to see a whole other branch of the mage tree. Because we have Jaina, and she's the only mage right now, correct?
Well, I mean, yeah, as far as Warcraft goes, you've got Kael'thas, Jaina.
That's true, Kael'thas.
But, I mean, of course, there's Li Ming. You've got mages in that respect. But I agree with you. I think that, and Blizzard has said this before because we're all, out there, we need more tanks, we need more specialists, we need more supports. But they've got a point when they say, each team comp, a traditional team comp, is made up of 3 assassins, a support, and a tank. So naturally, there needs to be a bigger selection of assassins in the game. There was a crazy period of time there where we got kind of in this weird only assassins time, but... I think Millhouse would be in the game. Chad has a great point too. Gul'dan, there's a bunch of mages in there, but they're different. I mean, we need a gnome mage.
Exactly. The gnome mage would bring an energy that these other mages couldn't possibly bring. And it's so funny because all of these mages are on ego trips, so he would fit in perfectly. Jane is still kind of working through it. And there's a chance we'll see her really go over the deep end in the future. But Millhouse would fit right in.
He would. And I mean, we can call all these other characters mages, but they're not really mages like Millhouse.
Mage with a capital M. There's only one, and that's MM.
And do they wear gnome spanks? Probably not.
No. No, they don't. And that's what really differentiates Millhouse from the rest of them.
I love it. Too funny. All right, Kristen, where can people find you in the interwebs when you're not doing this show?
You can find me at Dream Destroyer, that is DRMDESTRYR, over at Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram.
Very cool. And what are you working on your streams?
Oh, we are going through Black Mesa, that Half-Life recreation that was done in the Half-Life 2 engine. And it's a ton of fun. Half-Life, all of those games, beautifully, beautifully done.
Yeah, it's been many years since I've delved into that, so I will have to check out your stream, which is always fun. Make sure you follow Kristen on Twitch. Tons of awesome updates and tons of awesome stuff. If you're looking for both of us, we actually do a Divinity 2 stream. Divinity 2 Original Sin. We usually do it on Sundays, but we're bringing it to you with the holiday schedule tonight. If you happen to be listening to this show live, or you're looking at it on the podcast app and it's not 6:30 p.m. on Friday the 22nd, then you haven't missed it. You can check it out tonight, 6:30 p.m. on twitch.tv/Kyle Ferguson. Make sure you throw Kyle a follow over there as well. Awesome Heroes of the Storm content as well. If you're looking for me, I do this show with Kristen every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/Amove TV, because we are part of the Amove TV entertainment and podcast network. So many awesome things over there. Check out amove.tv for more. This podcast can be found on any of your favorite podcasting apps, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. If you commute like I do and your commute is crazy and you want more podcasts to listen to, this is the one you should download. Thank you to everyone that listens to us on all of their podcasting apps. You can follow us on Twitter at Forge Heroes, where we announce all of the show's announcements, and also if we have any giveaways, that's where that happens. And also you can vote on which one of the two kits you thought was the winner this week. If you've got an idea for a kit that you'd like to see on the show, there's a ton of ways that you can get that information to us. You can send it to us in an email, contactheroesforge@gmail.com. You can visit our website, which is heroesforge.club, or you can send us a tweet. Again, that's at Forge Heroes for tweeting us as well. Send us your ideas. We have a special every month that we call The Featured Forger, where we bring ideas from the community to life right here on the show. A huge thank you to all of our patron supporters again on patreon.com/heroesforge. And happy holidays, everyone.
Very happy holidays. I know we're gearing up here.
That's right. It's getting closer and closer with every second. Hopefully you got all your shopping done. Hopefully you're getting everything taken care of and you get to spend some time with friends and family. Do some forging while you're out there. You know, theory craft with your family. That's always a ton of fun. You know, family and friends. Get some things together, and we'd love to talk to you about everything that you come up with. Just a last reminder here. Next week, we are recording an episode, but it won't be happening on Sunday. It'll happen on Friday, the 29th at 3 p.m. Pacific, right here on twitch.tv/Amove TV. Too many TVs out there.
Way too many. Turn them off, folks. Turn off your TVs.
Turn off your
Enjoy the
TVs.
holidays.
Spend some time with your family, and we'll see you all in the real world.